What's up, guys? Welcome back to another class preview. This time we're going to be going over the Retribution Paladin and seeing the overall changes from Warlords of Draenor into the Legion Alpha. Kind of seeing if it's going to be good spec or not. Definitely got the awesome new artifact weapon for it, but we'll kind of see how the spec plays out. First of all, we're going to go over the spellbook, so let's get into it. First, we do have Avenging Wrath. It's a 2-minute cooldown. Increases all your damage and healing you deal by 35% for 27.5 seconds. I think this is a little bit changed just because of some artifact traits, but normally it'll still be 35 damage percent buff, so really nice cooldown. It's on a 2-minute cooldown, so you get to use it quite often. In my opinion, it's pretty powerful, but you also get some nice cool wings with it as well, just like normal. So nothing really new there. Next up, we do have Blade of Justice. This is a 12-yard range, 11-second cooldown. Strikes the enemy with a Blade of Justice, dealing 129,000 physical damage, and generates 2 holy power. This is a very nice way to generate holy power, plus give that extra little damage. It does have a okay effect in my opinion. Basically, pull a sword out of the ground. Not sure exactly how that is the best animation for a holy paladin, or as a retribution paladin, but it's still cool nonetheless. Plus, it generates 2 holy power instead of just the traditional 1 holy power from your main spenders. But moving on, we do have Blessing of Freedom, 25-second cooldown. Plus, places a blessing on the party or raid member, granting immunity to movement impairing effects for 8 seconds. Nothing new here. Blessing of Protection. It's on a 3.5-minute cooldown. Places a blessing on a party or raid member, protecting them from all physical attacks for 10 seconds. Cannot be used on targets with forbearance, and this also causes forbearance for 20 seconds. Nice bop. I think it's a higher cooldown, I think. Or was it 5 minutes? I think it probably was 5 minutes, so probably a little bit lower. Next up, we do have Cleanse Toxins. It's our basic Dispel. 8-second cooldown. Cleanses all poison and disease effects. Very nice, especially helps out the healers since you don't have to. Everyone doesn't have to be dispelling all the healers. They can kind of rely on some of the DPS to dispel themselves, if not help out on some other. Next up is Crusader Strike. It's a 3.3-second recharge. Strikes the target for 35,000 physical damage with a max of 2 charges and generates 1 holy power. Basic Crusader Strike. Has an interesting animation to it. I kind of like the slash, the upward slash. I wish there was a few other animations for it. Maybe even the opposite diagonal down. But still a little bit cleaner than it used to be. Next up, we do have Divine Shield. It's a 5-minute cooldown. Protects you from all damage and spells for 8 seconds. Cannot be used if you have forbearance, and this does cause forbearance for 20 seconds. Divine Steed, 45-second cooldown. It's a talent we'll go over later. Next is our AoE, which is Divine Storm. It does cost 3 holy power. We're still working off the 5 holy power system, so it unleashes a whirl of divine energy, dealing 71,000 holy damage to all enemies, nearby enemies. So, if we have 3 holy power, works like it used to. it does seem to trigger some of your passives a little bit more than Templar's Verdict, but we'll go over that later. Saw Flashlight with a 1.4 second cast, a quick but expensive heal that heals a target for 235,000 health. Pretty high, but it does cost about a fourth of your mana. Now we did change around the blessings. So there are 3 different blessings. The first one is Greater Blessings of the Kings. You place a blessing on an ally that absorbs them, that grants an absorption shield. It absorbs up to 32,000 damage and will be refreshed to its full strength every 6 seconds, even if fully consumed. Now you may only have 3 greater blessings at one time. This does not change in raid. You can only still bless 3 even if you had 25 people or whatever. So having this on a tank would be very useful. But let's go over the other 2. Greater Blessing of the Might. Places a blessing on an ally that gives their attacks a 10% chance to deal 30% additional damage as holy. So, nice damage boost. Not overall the best damage output, but still, you get free damage, so can't complain about that. Last but not least, we do have Greater Blessing of Wisdom, placing a blessing on an ally that causes them to regenerate 1% of their max health and mana per 3 seconds. Now this is awesome to place on a healer since it helps them with their mana regeneration. I think Ret Pallies are going to be insanely useful in raiding just because that they can place this on a healer, someone that runs out of mana really easily, such as Restoration Druids, since they're focused on more raid healing than anything else. This could be very useful for them. Even Restoration Shamans can burn through a bunch of mana, say if they just pop Ascension or something like that. But I do think this is going to make Ret Pallies almost a necessity, just because they are the only one that can kind of provide this kind of buff. I mean, there are druids that can do Innervate now, and some stuff like that cancel mana being used, but nothing that regenerates it. So I do think this is going to be amazing at keeping Ret Pallies in the raiding scene. But moving on, we do have Hammer of Justice. It's a 1-minute cooldown. Stuns the target for 6 seconds. Very bland, but a nice little stun. Definitely needed. Next, we have Hand of the Hindrance. It is a 30-second cooldown. Places a hand on the enemy target, reducing their movement speed by 70% for 10 seconds. Basically, they're only slow, so it's pretty powerful slow, but you can only have it up on a third of the time. Unlike some of the other melee classes, you can have almost a permanent slow, or even range classes like Concussive Shot that can permanently slow one target. So we do have Hand of Reckoning. It's an 8-second cooldown. Your basic taunt forces them to attack you for 3 seconds. Now on to Judgment. Now this is an 11-second cooldown. Judges a enemy, dealing 70,000 holy damage and causing the target to take 23% increased damage from your holy power consumers for 6 seconds. Now I really enjoy how they kind of changed Ret Pallies with this spell. You're basically going to be having difference between generators and consumers, obviously, but you want to get all of your holy power up, pop Judgment, then have the ability to get as many consumers off in that 6 second window that Judgment gives you. It really makes it like a kind of a burst thing, and kind of gives it a nice synergy. I do like how they changed this. They do have it somewhat on some other specs, but I think it's the cleanest on Ret Pallies. It really just makes you worry about what you're going to be pressing next. Oh, is it time for me to start doing my consumers? It really gives you a difference between, oh, I'm just pressing whatever is highlighted. Oh, I'm going to press my consumers next, but I get my judgment off first. So they did a really good job at making sure there's a difference between not pressing the shiny button, say like with enhancement shamans and stuff like that. Moving on, we do have Lay on Hands. 10-minute cooldown, heals a friendly target for the amount of health equal to your maximum health. Cannot be used on targets with forbearance, and this also causes forbearance for 20 seconds. Nothing really new here. Same old awesome heal. We have Rebuke. 15-second cooldown. Basic Interrupt. Prevents anything to be cast from that school of magic for 4 seconds. Redemption. Same old res. We do have Shield of Vengeance. Now this is a 1.5 minute cooldown. Creates a barrier of holy light that absorbs 181,000 damage over 15 seconds. When the barrier is consumed, all damage absorbed is dealt as holy damage divided across all enemies within 8 yards. I think this is a very nice defensive cooldown just because it plays into the fact of you're a paladin. You're absorbing stuff. You're not just putting just getting, yeah, I don't know. It's a nice barrier spell. I do really like it. Plus it has a low cooldown. I mean, 181,000 is not the best shield, but it is still a pretty decent one since you can heal yourself as is with flashlight and other talents. So doesn't really have an effect right now. It just kind of makes you fiery glow. So moving on, we have our main consumer for a single target. It is Templar's Verdict. Costs 3 holy power. A powerful weapon strike that deals 124,000 holy damage. Really basic, but same old Templar's Verdict. Has a similar animation of the Crusader Strike, but it just strikes up the opposite way and gives you a little spin. So, Wake of Ashes, that's our artifact power. We'll talk about that later. Word of Glory is a talent we'll talk about later. Heart of the Crusader, our first passive, increases your mounted speed by 20%. This does not stack with any other movement in speed increases. So, nice little bonus to mounted speed. Now moving on to our mastery, which is our Divine Judgment. It increases your judgment damage by 47% and causes judgment to increase the damage taken from your holy power spenders by 23%. So, the more mastery we have, the more base damage judgment will do, which is the entire reason we're going to be using it. But it is also to help out our consumers, such as Templar's Verdict and also our Divine Storm. Going to help power those up quite a bit. It is already at 23% just with our maybe not optimized gear, but still pretty decent at that. Next up, we do have Retribution. When a party or raid member within 40 yards dies, you gain 50% increased damage for 10 seconds. Now, this is kind of crazy because I can imagine this being really good in just like battlegrounds, just having someone die beside you, then you go absolutely insane for 10 seconds, pop wings and whatever. This could be very overpowered, but I think it's a kind of cool addition. Maybe not the 50% increased damage, but still pretty nice. Now last we do have Sword of Light. Increases the damage you deal with two-handed melee weapons by 5%. Now, maybe they just needed to put this in here just because the damage was a little bit off or something like that. But I guess it's a nice passive just because it gives you just more damage. Moving on to the talents. Starting off with level 15 talents, we do have Final Verdict. Now this passive increases the damage done by your Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm by 20%. It's an amazing passive, just overall helps out through your mastery just because of Judgment. If you're placing these at the right time and hitting either Divine Storm or Templar's Verdict, you can increase your damage by a lot. Next up, we do have Executioner's Sentence. It's on about a 19-second cooldown. A hammer slowly falls from the sky, dealing 262,000 holy damage after 7.5 seconds. Now, I don't believe this does any damage in between anymore. Nope, no damage in between. It'll just do one final burst at the end. So, nice addition, I think. Pretty low cooldown. Moving on, we do have Consecration. It's at 8.5 second cooldown. Consecrates the land beneath you, dealing 53,000 holy damage over 8.5 seconds to enemies who enter the area. This could be very useful if we're in an AoE fight, but I would still probably choose Final Verdict over it, just because it helps out your Divine Storm by 20% as well, so really nice. On to the level 30 talents. Now these kind of affect your Crusader Strike playstyle. The first one is the Fires of Justice. So passive reduces the cooldown of your Crusader Strike by 1 second and gives it a 25% chance to reduce the cost of your next damage or healing holy power ability by 1. So this gives you the option of casting Templar's Verdict at 2 holy power for the same damage. And it's a 25% chance, so it's not that high at all. But it only works off your Crusader Strike. It won't work off your Blade of Justice. So, moving on, we do have Zeal. This does replace our Crusader Strike. Strikes the target for 62,000 physical damage. Still has a 2 charges, so it's going to be double the damage of Crusader Strike, almost. And grants Zeal, causing Zeal to attacks to chain to additional nearby targets with a maximum of 3 stacks. This does still generate 1 holy power, same as Crusader Strike, but this could be very useful in cleave fights because your Zeals will hit multiple targets, plus they do a little bit more damage. Now moving on to Greater Judgment. It's a passive. Your Judgment cooldown is reduced by 2 seconds and jumps to 3 additional enemies. So this could be awesomely powerful in AoE fights, especially kind of work in with the Final Verdict. So if I hit that and I'm able to cast Divine Storm on these guys, I'll be doing a lot more damage. So, pretty useful in AoE. Moving on, we do have Fists of Justice. It's a passive. Your damage dealing abilities that spend holy power reduce the manning cooldown of your Hammer of Justice by 10 seconds. Now this is really awesome because it's already just on a 1 minute cooldown. So, my first consumer reduces it by 10 seconds, and it could really be reduced by a lot if you get the right procs. So, and it's already back up. So, really useful. Moving on, we do have Repentance. 15-second cooldown with a 1.6-second cast. Forces the enemy target to meditate, incapacitating the target and dealing up to a maximum of 25% of the target's health over 1 minute. It is usable against demons, dragonkins, giants, humanoids, and undeads, just like before. But I do like the fact that it damages the target itself, so that's pretty useful. Plus it's a nice EC. Moving on, we do have Blinding Light. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown. Emits dazzling light in all directions, blinding enemies within 10 yards, dealing 65,000 damage, and causing them to wander disoriented for 6 seconds. Any non-holy damage will break the disorient effect. So, you can still hit them with any holy spells, but say like Crusader Strike is physical damage, so that will obviously break it, as well as like Blade of Justice. So try to make sure you have some holy power, even if you're gonna try to damage one of the blinding light targets. Moving on, we do have the Virtue's Blade. It's a passive. Blade of Justice. Critical strikes now deal 3 times the normal damage instead of just 2 times the normal damage. So if I crit with this, I'm gonna crit really hard. No, that should have been a crit. Next up, we do have Blade of Wrath. Now this does replace Blade of Justice. So it's 7.5 second cooldown. So a little bit shorter cooldown. It strikes an enemy with a Blade of Wrath, dealing 19,000 holy damage, which is really low, in my opinion, but generates 2 holy power still. So it's very useful at generating holy power, just because it's a lower cooldown, but it is no longer good at dealing out damage, since Blade of Justice was at 96,000, with reducing the cooldown by 4 seconds, it reduces the damage done by like 80,000. So overall, I don't think that's not worth it. They might change the damage around a little bit, just so it's a little bit useful. But a great way to gain more holy power and activating your mastery more often. I think it could synergize very well with like Greater Judgment and stuff like that. Next up, we have Divine Hammer. Now this does still replace Blade of Justice with a 7.5 second cooldown. Divine Hammers spin around you, dealing damage within 8 yards for 8,000 holy damage instantly, and every 2 seconds for about 7.5 seconds. So you can constantly have this up. That's just damage. Hammers around you. It does nice, very little damage, but still generates that holy power. Maybe not as much, since it does only generate 1 every 7.5 seconds. So even with the main virtues, Blade of Justice, you would be generating more holy power more often than with just Divine Hammer. So, but if the damage is increased a little bit more, I do see this being very useful in AoE fights. Moving on, we do have Justicar's Vengeance. Costs 5 holy power. A weapon strike that deals 131,000 holy damage and restores health equal to the damage it's done. Deals 100% additional damage and healing when used against a stunned target. Now this could be insanely useful for our self-sustain. Also, if you can line it up perfectly with a stun, that would be awesome. And here we go. Pop a stun, and 305,000 damage. Plus you can get it procced, and so it is a free cast as well, so which is insanely good. I might just use that just for the procs itself. That could do a lot of damage, plus restores some health. Moving on, we do have Eye for an Eye. Reduces physical damage you take by 35% and instantly counterattacks any enemy that strikes you within melee combat for 47,000 physical damage for 10 seconds. It does have a 1 minute cooldown. Nice kind of play into Retribution. We also used to have Eye for Eye a long time ago, but that has been gotten rid of. I do kind of like that they're somewhat bringing it back, but it is kind of a nice addition. Does make you feel like you're playing a Retribution Paladin and stuff like that, so very nice. Next up, we do have World of Glory. Does cost 3 holy power, 1 minute recharge. It does have 2 charges. Heal yourself and up to 5 friendly enemies, or friendly targets, within 15 yards for 218,000 health. Now this is really good because it heals you and 4 others for 218,000 health with only a 1 minute recharge with the 2 charges, so that's really good. Pop those out as much as you can. It does increase your damage by quite a bit. So, moving on, we do have Seal of, nope, Divine Intervention. Reduces the damage, your Divine Shield cooldown by 50%. In addition, any attacks which would kill you instead otherwise reduce you to 20% of your maximum health and triggers Divine Shield. Cannot occur while Divine Shield is on cooldown or Forbearance is active. So, this is good if you're kind of busy with your DPS rotation or something like that, or wasn't really expecting to drop down so fast. This would be a very good talent just because you can pop Divine Shield more often. So it is a 2.5 minute cooldown with this talent, and does have that nice little safety there. Next up, we do have Divine Steed. Has a 45-second cooldown. Summons your holy mount to ride for 3 seconds. Increases your movement speed by 100%, and this is usable while in doors or in combat. So, nice little speed boost. You can still attack while on this Divine Steed. Draws upon your holy energy to increase your movement speed by 20% for 20 seconds per holy power spent. Now, this is really nice. It's really powerful, but it does not give you the most movement speed percentage-wise. But you can keep this active if you do pop it with 5. Give you the most movement speed percentage wise, but you can keep this active if you do pop it with five holy power for a very long time, for 100 seconds. So nice little addition, but not the best movement speed increase, but it does last a lot longer. Moving on, we do have Divine Purpose as a passive. Your holy power consuming abilities have a 20% chance to make your next holy power consumer ability free. Now, I do like this with GigusGaming's Vengeance, because if I do get this triggered, let's see if I can. That'll be a little light on the side. Maybe I can. Oh, do something that triggered. Oh, wow. Now, since I do use this with GigusGaming's Vengeance, it does have a nice effect to it. Since normally it would cost 3, but this does make that 5 cooldown instant. So those two could go very well with each other, because GigusGaming's Vengeance does do more damage, a little bit more damage than Templar's Verdict, and more damage than Divine Storm, but it also heals you, therefore relieving some of the damage, the healing required by your healers. So it could be very useful with those two. Moving on, we do have Holy Wrath with a 1-minute cooldown. Now this is a channeled ability, so fires holy bolts at the target over 2.4 seconds, causing 327,000 holy damage and generating 5 holy power. Now this looks like such. Now it is interesting. I don't like having to stop my DPS rotation or whatever, but since this is mostly cooldown based in melee, with Blade of Justice and Crusader Strike both having a cooldown on it, this could be a nice talent to generate holy power, just to make sure that you're not, once you have both of these down on cooldown plus your Wake of Ashes all on cooldown, this could be a nice addition. But you just got to make sure that you're not wasting your time trying to pop this off, or not generating other holy power effects. So I do like it, but I do like Divine Purpose a little bit better. Last but not least, we do have Equality. 3-minute cooldown, deals holy damage up to 3 enemies within 10 yards, equal to 150% of your missing health. Deals 50% of your missing health against enemy players, so in PvP. If this was able to be used in full effect in PvP, this could be pretty intense. But it still does 75% of your missing health. Say you're at what, 50% health. It does, what is that? So it'll do about like 500k damage, even with that passive in against PvP. But it also does it to 3 players. So this could be a very strong cooldown. Gives you some instant damage, instant burst, especially if you're low. So I do like this. I do see it more as a PvP talent than anything else. I don't see this in raiding that often, because you should be close to full health in raids at all times, just so this wouldn't be that effective. So overall, like a good set of talents. I really like that it balances between cooldown based melee abilities, and also helps out AoE stuff as well, such as like Greater Judgment and stuff like that. So it does have a good feel to it. Moving on to our artifact weapon, which is the Ashbringer. Our main ability is Wake of Ashes. Has a 30-second cooldown. Slams Ashbringer on the ground, dealing 142,000 radiant damage, whatever kind of damage that is. I would assume holy. And an additional 196,000 radiant damage over 6 seconds to all enemies within 12 yards in front of you. It also does reduce movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. Demons or undead enemies are stunned for 6 seconds if they are struck by Wake of Ashes. Now, this does generate 5 holy power just because of Ashes to Ashes. Now, Ashes to Ashes is a passive. Wake of Ashes also generates 5 holy power and causes the damage to radiate for 196. So normally this would just do 142,000 damage and not generate any holy power. This Ashes to Ashes passive is ridiculous, just because you can kind of make this into your main rotation, because it gives you more, it gives you full holy power, makes this ability a really strong, especially on the 30-second cooldown. So those two really synergize together, and if I just starting at 100, I'd go towards that as fast as I can. So moving on to some unique passives. Now we do have Echo of the High Lord. Ashbringer mimics Divine's Verdict and Divine Storm. So you basically get double. You'll see here. Boom, boom. I don't think it does the full damage though. Yeah. I just hit for 290. I think it does about 10% of the damage. I think they forgot to add that in there, but it's a nice little cool effect in my opinion. But I think the damage might be off a little bit. But I guess they can. It is still Legion Alpha. They can change it whenever they please to. And last but not least, we do have Divine Tempest. Now this is a passive. Ashbringer projects Divine Storm forward for 20 yards, damaging all enemies in its path. And this also increases the damage by Divine Storm by 20%. Very awesome. Very awesome with Final's Verdict as well, making our Divine Storm ridiculously powerful. Plus, it has a nice animation of you casting tornadoes. Holy tornadoes. Which, who doesn't love? Boom. So, overall, a nice new DPS. It does feel pretty unique. It does have a nice clean feel to it. Maybe not the fastest pacing spec, but it's a pretty average one. Like, it's not the slowest either, so it does pretty have high DPS as of right now. If you are hitting the right buttons, you can get your DPS pretty high. It's not as high as Demon Hunters as of right now, but still pretty powerful. Hopefully they do add in some new cool effects to this. I would like to see a bunch of new animations. I'm in love with some of the new animations. They just need to add some more for a few of the specs. Overall, fun addition. Plus, you still feel like a Holy Paladin. Plus, you're wielding the Ashbringer, which isn't. Who doesn't love that? So anyways, if we did like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. There's going to be plenty more to come. I'm probably going to be doing stuff around the class halls next, since most of those are being finished up around this time in Legion Alpha. So they should be out here shortly as well. If we do have any questions about Retribution Paladins, any previous videos, or any future videos, please leave them in the comment box below. And thank you very much for watching once again, and I will see you guys next time.